Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, and we are now going to be diving into the quarterback battle that is still going on in Pittsburgh between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Mike Tomlin put out a quote last night saying that the competition between the two of them is still, quote, an incomplete study. And that is because of a couple things. First off, neither one of them really earned the job for themselves over the course of the weekend. Steelers offense just looked very dismantled, which is part of what ties into this, because when Tomlin talks about the incomplete study, a number of other factors interfered with just the evaluation of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. It's preseason, so you can't overreact by any means, but definitely some concerns popping up with that Steelers offense as things currently stand, and a big part of it being the offensive line and the run game. The quarterback situation, I mean, ultimately, do I love Russell Wilson or Justin Fields as competing really in that top 10, even top 15 quarterbacks in the league? I don't see that really happening, but if either one of them can just be solid, the idea is with a good defense, it should be enough. The Steelers won 10 games last year and their quarterback play wasn't good either, but it is a little bit more nuanced to that, especially considering I think that their division got better, got healthier for sure, especially at that quarterback position. And now you look at the Steelers, it's going to take more than just, solid play at the quarterback position, because I thought that their offensive line was massively concerning. I did a video last week about some red flags from the preseason, and one of the red flags was it's just preseason, can't put too much into it, but at the same time, the offensive line, I'm really not sold on, especially Broderick Jones, since he made his, starting debut halfway through last year. I think he's looked pretty rough in pass coverage on a number of instances. He let Gregory Rousseau absolutely manhandle him a couple times in this game, and that's an important spot for the Steelers. So offensive line, I have some concerns there, dealing with some injuries as well. Jaylen Warren goes out with a hamstring injury in this game, and he is expected to be out for a few weeks. So again, a lot of things sort of falling apart around the quarterback competition of Wilson and Fields that it makes it difficult for the coaching staff to really evaluate who gives them the better chance to win. Because in this game, it was neither of them. Russell Wilson started the game. He was 8 of 10, 47 yards, and was sacked 3 times. Justin Fields came in for the second half, and it was just the two of them, which was good to actually get extensive, looks at both of them. But Fields, ultimately, offense not that much more productive. 11 of 17, 92 yards, 0 scores. He was their leading rusher with 42 yards. Again, some of the stats don't really matter all that much. It's more so about what the eye test can actually show you. And eye test did not show much, I think, really for either one of these guys, where Russell Wilson, the Steelers only picked up 2 first downs total in his 4 drives at quarterback. One of them was in the air, and for whatever it's worth as well, one of them came when Russell Wilson was at least, he finally got a clean pocket, had guys open down the field, and he was able to hit Van Jefferson over the middle there for a conversion. Ultimately, Steelers end up missing a kick there, but that could have been a scoring drive for Russell Wilson there. But again, I just don't think that what we have seen from the rest of the Steelers, again, question mark at the quarterback position, but it's clearly showing that it might be a little bit more than that too with the Steelers, where I think it's just going to be really tough for them to, just expect to roll out there. And it's a Mike Tomlin coach team. Seems like what they've been able to do is sort of, manufacture wins almost out of their behinds in terms of being down late in games and being able to come back for whatever it's worth. Again, Kenny Pickett, especially after what we saw from him last Thursday, definitely not ready to say that, he's a starting caliber quarterback. I've been pretty as just about as pro Kenny Pickett as you can be. Definitely not arguing that he's special, but that I thought that he wasn't the problem with the Steelers offense last year. I thought that the offensive line had their struggles. The run game wasn't consistent. Obviously, they fired their coordinator halfway through the year in Matt Canada, which is something very un-Steelers-like to do throughout the course of a season. So, a lot of moving pieces for him. Kenny Pickett came up at the end of games last year for the Steelers. Now, again, is that more of a Mike Tomlin and how the organization is run thing? Or does Kenny Pickett maybe deserve a little bit of credit for putting together some pretty notable comeback drives? Time will only tell here, depending on who we see as the starting quarterback. I mean, you would have to imagine that Russell Wilson, with all the experience that he's had, would be able to understand what sort of buttons to press in those final do-or-die drives. Definitely not a Russell Wilson guy at this point, myself personally, but I think it was maybe a game against the Vikings last year that we did see a little bit of Russell Wilson, putting together a run. It might have been the Bills game that I'm thinking of, again, just doing this sort of off the top of my head here. So don't want to get myself all twisted up in that right now. But, I mean, I guess we'll see. Ideally, the whole point is, though, the Steelers are hoping that their offense is more competent, that they don't have to rely on some sort of a miracle fourth quarter, final 2-minute drive, that they can actually have some real stability there. And I do think that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields can very likely be upgrades over what the Steelers had at quarterback last year, but the question is, do they have all of the other pieces as well? Troy Fautanu going down, the first-round selection for them this year, offensive lineman, him going down was a massive loss for them. I'm not sure exactly how long he's supposed to be out for, so we can look a little bit more into that. First looks here, looks like two weeks or so, so could potentially be available for week 1. I think they kick off their game on September 8th. Might be their first game of the season. But, that's at least a loss for now. And losing Jaylen Warren as well in the running game. Like, this is a fine Steelers offense, but I do think that they are a little bit thin in a lot of categories. And, having some of these crucial injuries pop up on the offensive line and in the backfield, that is a really tough situation, again, for the coaching staff to be able to expect Wilson or Fields to overcome all of this. So, I mean, ultimately, I think that the job is going to be Russell Wilson's. I'll say this, Justin Fields, the improvisation with him and just being able to use his legs, I think that that's something that raises the floor of this Pittsburgh offense. If there are other issues that are going on, it's not like Russell Wilson's a statue in the pocket. He is still, he was one of the original, improvisers of the 2010s. And as we started to head more so into this dual threat quarterback era, Russell Wilson, it's not like he was ever a massive designed run plays guy, but he was always able to make things happen with his legs. So it's not that he's incapable of doing that, but if it's going to be a little bit messy in the trenches for the Steelers, I do think that there's a good chance that Justin Fields could be more cut out for handling that pressure. Some of the stats that came from Russell Wilson's time in Denver, in large part, was that their pass blocking was actually pretty solid in Wilson's couple seasons there in Denver, but he was the most sacked quarterback during that time frame, despite having, I think he was within the top 10 of, average time to throw according to ESPN analytics. And we saw a little bit, him hold on to the ball slightly too long. Again, it's not like his offensive line did him any services in their game over the weekend, but at the same time, it was it was notable, obviously, having those 3 sacks take place in his 4 drives. He was sacked more times than the Steelers picking up first downs, which is, a little bit of an apples to orange comparisons there. But, it was not a productive showing with Russell Wilson in the game. Fields, not that much better, but I do kind of feel like you can sort of structure the Bears were second, I believe, in the NFL. They might have even been first in the NFL in 2022 with Justin Fields. That's when he was running the ball all over the place. That's when the Bears only won 2 games, so it's definitely not an exact recipe that you're trying to follow, but it's at least something that you can be confident that your offense is good at, is running the ball. And I think that Justin Fields, again, at least provides that little bit of a higher floor than what Russell Wilson gives you. But there's also, the turnover factor as well, which has definitely hurt Justin Fields in the past couple seasons as he's tried to establish himself as a true starting quarterback in the NFL. So there's not an easy solution here. And it seems like the Steelers are going to look to run into week 3 as to, whether or not they're going to decide on a starting quarterback before then. We'll see. Maybe it's this week in camp that really changes things up for them. But the Steelers are slated to play the Detroit Lions on Saturday afternoon at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on whether or not we have a definitive answer on who will be the week 1 starting quarterback for the Steelers by then. But from one quarterback competition to another, we are now going to be shifting gears to talking about the Las Vegas Raiders, who made their announcement for who they plan to start this season. They made that decision just yesterday morning after they played on Saturday night, so we'll be diving into that, talking about whether or not it is the right decision. But first, we will be taking a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.